Have you ever found yourself wide awake at 4 a.m., staring at the shadows dancing across your ceiling, wondering why sleep eludes you at this particular hour? That moment when the world is silent and your thoughts seem to echo loudly in the stillness of your bedroom. If you're in your golden years, this experience might be all too familiar. Many dismiss these pre-dawn awakenings as just another inconvenient sign of aging, something to be tolerated rather than understood. But what if I told you that these quiet moments in the dark hold deeper meanings? What if your 4 a.m. consciousness is not a problem to solve, but a message to hear? In this video, we're exploring 6 profound reasons why older adults often find themselves awake in the early morning hours, particularly around 4 a.m., and what this pattern might be revealing about your body, mind, and life journey. These aren't just surface-level explanations. They're insights drawn from research in chronobiology, psychology, and the wisdom that comes with decades of living. By the time we finish, you might see those quiet hours not as lost sleep, but as a unique window into understanding yourself better. Each reason we discuss offers a different perspective on why your eyes open when the stars are still bright, and each perspective brings with it practical wisdom for living more harmoniously with your natural rhythms. So, if you've been wondering why your internal alarm seems permanently set to the early morning hours, stay with me. The answers might surprise you, comfort you, or even help you make peace with this common experience. And by the end, you'll have practical strategies to either work with these wakeful moments or gently guide your sleep pattern in a different direction. Let's begin this journey of understanding together, starting with perhaps the most fundamental shift happening within your body's timekeeping system. Number 1. The shifting sands of your biological clock. The first fundamental reason many older adults find themselves awake at 4 a.m. relates to profound changes in the body's master timekeeper, your circadian rhythm. This internal clock doesn't just influence when you feel sleepy. It orchestrates hundreds of biological processes, from hormone release to body temperature regulation, all synced to an approximately 24-hour cycle. What many don't realize is that this internal clock naturally shifts throughout our lifetime. During adolescence, it tends to run later, explaining why teenagers struggle to wake for early classes. But as we move into our 60s, 70s, and beyond, this clock begins to advance earlier, a phenomenon scientists call phase advance. This isn't a malfunction, it's a natural evolution of your body's timing system. Your brain's suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master clock located just above where your optic nerves cross, begins to process time differently. The result? You may find yourself naturally drowsy by 8 p.m. and, consequently, completely finished with your sleep cycle around 4 a.m., regardless of when you'd prefer to wake up. Margaret, who recently turned 75, experienced this firsthand. For decades, she was a classic night owl, often reading until midnight before drifting off. But over the past few years, she noticed herself struggling to keep her eyes open during evening television programs, sometimes nodding off before 9 p.m. Then, like clockwork, her eyes would open at 3:45 a.m., mind clear and rest complete. At first, Margaret fought against this pattern, staying up later by sheer willpower and then feeling frustrated when she still woke early. But after learning about phase advance, she began to work with her shifting rhythms rather than against them. She now embraces earlier dinners and evening walks at sunset, using the natural light to help regulate her advancing clock. By accepting this change as natural rather than problematic, she's found greater peace with her sleep pattern. What makes this biological shift challenging for many isn't the change itself, but how it conflicts with societal schedules and expectations. When your body naturally wants to sleep from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., but family dinners, evening shows, and social gatherings happen later, you may feel out of sync with the world around you. There's also fascinating research suggesting this phase advance may have evolutionary roots. In traditional multi-generational living arrangements, having older adults naturally awake in the pre-dawn hours provided an advantage. Someone was alert and vigilant during vulnerable early morning hours when predators might approach or when early preparations for the day needed to begin. What feels inconvenient in our modern 24/7 society may actually be a biological adaptation with historical benefits. The most important thing to understand about this circadian shift is that it's not a disorder requiring correction. It's a natural transition in how your body relates to time itself. Your internal clock isn't broken. It's simply keeping a different time now, one that perhaps honors the wisdom of earlier rising and the special quiet that only exists before the world awakens. Number 2. The melatonin mystery, changing chemistry in the aging brain. The second vital reason for those 4 a.m. awakenings relates to significant changes in your brain's chemistry, particularly involving the sleep hormone melatonin. This remarkable compound is your body's natural sleep signal, flooding your system when darkness falls to prepare you for rest. But as we age, this chemical messenger becomes increasingly elusive. Research has shown that by your 70s, you may be producing only about half the melatonin you did in your youth. It's as if the volume on your body's sleep signal is gradually being turned down, making it harder to maintain continuous sleep through the night. This isn't happening randomly. It's a predictable change in your brain's chemistry that affects millions of older adults worldwide. What makes this particularly relevant to 4 a.m. awakenings is how melatonin is released and maintained throughout the night. In younger adults, melatonin levels rise sharply in the evening and remain elevated until morning light signals the brain to stop production. But with age, not only is less melatonin produced initially, but the levels tend to drop significantly in the early morning hours, often around 3 to 4 a.m. When this happens, the chemical barrier between sleep and wakefulness becomes thinner. Even minor disturbances, a distant sound, a slight discomfort, a change in room temperature, can more easily break through and bring you to full alertness. And once awake, with melatonin levels already declining, your brain may decide it's time to start the day, regardless of what the clock says. Consider Robert's experience. At 81, he's always been proud of his ability to fall asleep quickly, usually within minutes of his head hitting the pillow. But lately, he finds himself waking at 4:15 a.m. almost every morning, unable to drift back to sleep despite feeling that he hasn't had quite enough rest. After learning about age-related melatonin decline, Robert made several strategic changes to his environment. He installed blackout curtains to keep his bedroom truly dark, as even small amounts of light pollution from street lamps can further suppress already diminished melatonin. He removed all electronic devices with LED indicators from his bedroom and began wearing blue light blocking glasses in the evening to protect his sensitive melatonin production. These changes didn't completely eliminate his early wakings, but they extended his sleep by nearly an hour most nights, a significant improvement. More importantly, understanding that this wasn't a personal failing but a natural biochemical shift helped Robert approach his sleep with greater patience and self-compassion. What's particularly fascinating about melatonin changes is how they interact with our increasingly artificial lighting environment. Human brains evolved with only fire and moonlight illuminating the night, but today we're surrounded by screens, LEDs, and indoor lighting that can confuse our already sensitive aging circadian systems. This environmental mismatch can amplify the natural melatonin decline, making those 4 a.m. awakenings even more common. Some research suggests that these changes in sleep-regulating hormones might serve an evolutionary purpose, preparing older adults for roles as morning sentinels in their communities. Whether or not that's true, understanding the chemistry behind your early wakings can transform frustration into acceptance and guide you toward practical solutions that work with your changing biology rather than against it. Number 3. The body's nighttime messages, physical discomforts that surface at dawn. The third significant reason many older adults find themselves alert at 4 a.m. relates to how physical sensations and needs become amplified during the quiet hours. Your body is constantly sending signals about its condition, but during the day, these messages often get drowned out by activity, conversations, and the general business of living. When everything else goes quiet in the pre-dawn hours, these physical messages can suddenly seem much louder. As we accumulate years of living, our bodies naturally develop various forms of physical discomfort. Perhaps it's the subtle ache of osteoarthritis in a hip or knee, the growing pressure of a bladder that's not as elastic as it once was, or the mild acid reflux from a digestive system that's become more sensitive with time. During daylight hours, you might barely notice these sensations as you move through your activities, but when lying still in the quiet darkness, they can become the only thing you feel. The relationship between physical discomfort and 4 a.m. awakenings works in two directions. Sometimes, an actual physical need wakes you. Your bladder reaches capacity, a position becomes uncomfortable, or your blood sugar dips slightly. Other times, you might wake for different reasons, but once awake, you suddenly become aware of physical sensations that make returning to sleep difficult. Consider Alina's story. At 79, she's lived an active life and still gardens daily, but years of kneeling among her beloved roses have left her with persistent knee discomfort. Recently, she found herself consistently waking around 3:50 a.m., unable to fall back asleep. After keeping a simple journal by her bedside, she noticed a pattern. She was waking because she'd been lying in the same position for hours, and her knees were sending distress signals that broke through her sleep. Elena made two simple changes that dramatically improved her situation. First, she added a small pillow between or under her knees, depending on her sleeping position. Second, she began taking a mild anti-inflammatory with her evening meal rather than at breakfast. These adjustments addressed the nighttime discomfort before it could escalate enough to wake her. While she still occasionally rises early, the frequency has decreased significantly. What's often overlooked in discussions about nighttime awakening is how aging affects our perception of physical sensations. Research suggests that older adults may actually process certain types of sensory information differently during sleep. The threshold for how much discomfort can be experienced before it triggers awakening appears to lower with age. What your younger self might have slept through easily now reliably brings you to consciousness. Medications can play a complex role in this dynamic as well. Many common prescriptions for blood pressure, heart health, or mood regulation can alter sleep architecture or cause side effects that manifest most noticeably in the early morning hours. Some medications have diuretic effects that increase nighttime urination, while others might affect blood sugar stability or joint comfort during the night. The wisdom here isn't just in identifying physical triggers for early awakening but recognizing that your body is communicating important information. These signals aren't arbitrary annoyances, they're valuable data about your changing needs. Learning to interpret and respond to these messages with small adjustments to your evening routine, medication timing, sleep environment, or pre-bed practices can make a significant difference in your sleep continuity. By understanding that physical disruptions aren't personal failings but natural conversations your body is trying to have with you, you can approach these early awakenings with greater patience and practical problem solving rather than frustration. Number 4. The thinning veil of sleep, changes in sleep architecture as we age. The fourth fascinating reason behind those 4 a.m. awakenings involves fundamental changes in the very structure of your sleep. Sleep isn't a single state but a complex journey through different stages, each with unique patterns of brain activity. As we age, this architecture undergoes significant renovation, particularly affecting how deeply we sleep and how easily we transition between sleep stages. One of the most notable changes occurs in deep sleep, also called slow-wave sleep. This is the most restorative stage, when your brain processes memories, your body repairs tissues, and you're most difficult to awaken. Research shows that by age 70, many adults experience up to 80% less deep sleep than they did in their 20s. Instead, more time is spent in lighter sleep stages where the boundary between sleep and wakefulness becomes increasingly permeable. This architectural shift creates a perfect scenario for early morning awakenings. As dawn approaches and you naturally cycle through sleep stages, you're more likely to rise completely into consciousness rather than drifting back into another sleep cycle. It's as if the protective moat around your castle of sleep has become a shallow stream that's easily crossed. William's experience illustrates this perfectly. At 72, he falls asleep easily at night but finds himself completely alert around 4:15 a.m. most mornings. Using a sleep tracking device, he discovered something interesting. He was still getting roughly the same total hours of sleep as when he was younger, but the quality and distribution had changed dramatically. Where he once spent significant time in deep sleep during the second half of the night, now his final hours of rest were primarily in the lightest sleep stages. Working with this knowledge, William made several adjustments. He prioritized physical activity earlier in the day, as evening exercise was pushing his deeper sleep cycles too far forward. He also developed a brief relaxation routine for those early awakenings, deep breathing and progressive muscle relaxation that sometimes guides him back to at least light sleep for another hour. What's particularly important to understand about these architectural changes is that they're not abnormal or pathological. They represent the natural evolution of sleep across the lifespan. Your sleep isn't necessarily worse than when you were younger. It's different, with its own patterns and requirements. There's emerging evidence that this shift toward lighter sleep and earlier waking may have evolutionary benefits. Anthropologists studying traditional societies have observed that older adults often serve as morning sentinels, being the first to wake and assess conditions before the day begins. In communities where predators or changing weather conditions could pose threats, having experienced elders naturally alert in the predawn hours may have provided important protection. For modern adults experiencing these changes, the key insight isn't trying to recapture the sleep of youth but understanding how to work harmoniously with your evolving sleep architecture. This might mean adjusting expectations, creating a comfortable environment for those early morning hours, or redistributing sleep across the day in ways that honor your body's new patterns. By recognizing these changes as natural rather than problematic, you can release the frustration that often comes with early waking and instead develop strategies that support your well-being within your current sleep reality. If you're finding value in these insights so far, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue creating content that honors the wisdom that comes with age. Now, let's continue with our exploration of why 4 a.m. seems to be such a significant hour for older adults. Number 5. The quiet stirring of emotion, psychological factors in early waking. The fifth profound reason for those 4 a.m. awakenings delves into the realm of psychology and emotional processing. During our busy days, the mind often suppresses deeper thoughts and feelings to focus on immediate tasks and responsibilities. But in the stillness of early morning, when external distractions disappear, these suppressed emotions often rise to the surface. As we accumulate decades of life experience, we naturally carry more memories, unresolved questions, and emotional material that seeks processing time. The predawn hours, when the analytical parts of the brain step back and more contemplative areas activate, create the perfect conditions for this important psychological work to occur. These early awakenings might be your mind creating space for emotional integration, a natural form of psychological maintenance that becomes increasingly important with age. Just as your computer needs quiet time to run updates and organization processes, your consciousness benefits from periods when it can sort through emotional data without interruption. Catherine's experience illustrates this beautifully. At 77, she began experiencing consistent 4 a.m. awakenings shortly after moving to a retirement community. Initially frustrated by these interruptions, she eventually realized that these quiet hours had become valuable time for processing the major life transition she was undergoing. Her mind was using this uninterrupted time to integrate memories of her former home, adjust to new surroundings, and gradually make peace with this new chapter in her life. Rather than fighting these awakenings, Catherine created a comfortable sitting area near her bedroom window. When she wakes early now, she wraps herself in a soft blanket, makes a small cup of herbal tea, and either journals or simply sits with her thoughts as they naturally arise and resolve. What began as a sleep disruption has transformed into a cherished ritual of reflection. Research in psychology suggests that older adults often experience a natural shift toward greater introspection and life review. This important developmental process, looking back over one's experiences, finding patterns and meaning, integrating regrets and celebrations, requires mental space that can be difficult to find during active daytime hours. Your 4 a.m. awakenings may represent your mind creating this necessary space for itself. There's also the reality of existential awareness that often deepens with age. As we move through our later years, questions about purpose, legacy, and meaning naturally arise more frequently. These profound considerations don't fit neatly into busy schedules but find their voice in the contemplative quiet of early morning hours when the mind naturally turns toward deeper matters. For many older adults, these psychological awakenings are compounded by changes in social circumstances. Perhaps you're adjusting to retirement, living alone after losing a partner, or navigating changing family dynamics as adult children build their own lives. These transitions create emotional material that requires processing time, and your early morning awakenings may be providing exactly that opportunity. The wisdom in understanding this dimension of early waking lies in recognizing these moments not as problematic interruptions but as valuable windows for emotional integration. By approaching these quiet hours with curiosity rather than frustration, you may discover important insights that contribute to your ongoing emotional well-being and psychological growth. Number 6. The wisdom of seasonal living: how modern lifestyles conflict with natural rhythms. The sixth and final reason behind those persistent 4 a.m. awakenings speaks to a profound disconnection between modern lifestyles and the natural rhythms humans evolved with over thousands of generations. Until very recently in human history, sleep patterns naturally shifted with the seasons. People slept longer during winter's long nights and rose earlier during summer's extended daylight.
Research in historical sleep patterns reveals that before widespread artificial lighting, many cultures practiced segmented or biphasic sleep, especially during winter months. People would sleep for several hours, wake for a period of quiet reflection or light activity, then return to sleep until dawn. This pattern closely resembles what many older adults experience now, waking in the middle of the night before eventually returning to sleep. What if your 4 a.m. awakenings aren't a sleep disorder at all, but your body attempting to return to a more natural sleep pattern that humans followed for most of our existence? This perspective transforms these wakeful periods from problems into expressions of ancient wisdom still encoded in your biology. Thomas, age 83, embraced this understanding after years of frustration with early wakings. Living in northern Minnesota, he noticed his sleep patterns shifted dramatically with the seasons, waking much earlier in summer months when dawn broke before 5 a.m., and experiencing middle-of-the-night wakings more frequently during winter's long darkness. Rather than fighting these patterns, Thomas began deliberately adapting his lifestyle to honor these seasonal differences. In winter months, he keeps a comfortable chair with a small reading light near his bed. When he wakes at night, he reads historical accounts or poetry for 30 to 60 minutes before returning to sleep until morning. During summer, he rises with his early awakenings, often watching the sunrise from his porch before starting his day.
Once I stopped treating my sleep as broken and started seeing it as naturally responsive to the world around me, everything changed, Thomas explains. These quiet hours have become some of my favorite parts of day or night. Modern living presents unique challenges to our ancient sleep programming. Constant exposure to artificial light, temperature-controlled environments, and rigid social schedules override the environmental cues that would naturally guide our sleep. For older adults whose circadian systems are already undergoing significant changes, this mismatch becomes even more pronounced. There's growing evidence that reconnecting with natural light patterns can help regulate sleep timing. Spending time outdoors during daylight hours, especially in morning light, and reducing artificial light exposure after sunset can help strengthen your body's natural rhythms. Some older adults find that camping trips or extended time in natural settings temporarily restores more consistent sleep, highlighting how powerfully environmental factors influence our rest. The wisdom in this final perspective isn't about perfectly recreating pre-industrial sleep patterns, but rather developing greater flexibility and acceptance of how your sleep naturally changes across both the lifespan and the seasons. By working with rather than against these patterns, you may discover a more sustainable relationship with sleep that honors both your biological heritage and your current circumstances. Final thoughts. Embracing the wisdom of your waking hours. As we draw our exploration to a close, I invite you to reflect on which of these 6 perspectives resonated most deeply with your experience. Was it the shifting of your biological clock, the changes in sleep-regulating hormones, physical discomforts surfacing in the quiet hours, the thinning architecture of sleep itself, the gentle stirring of emotions and memories, or perhaps the call of ancient seasonal rhythms still echoing in your body? What unites all these explanations is a profound reframing. Your early morning awakenings aren't failures or disorders but expressions of natural processes unfolding as they should. They represent your body and mind continuing to adapt, communicate, and evolve through all seasons of life. When you find yourself awake at 4 a.m., perhaps the question isn't, "How do I fix this?" but rather, "What might this moment be offering me?" Sometimes, the answer might be practical. Your body needs you to adjust your position or address a physical discomfort. Other times, it might be inviting you into a moment of quiet reflection that busy daylight hours rarely afford. Many cultures and wisdom traditions have long recognized the special quality of predawn hours. Buddhist monks rise before dawn for meditation, recognizing the unique mental clarity available in these hours. Various contemplative traditions speak of the hour of God in early morning, when the veil between ordinary awareness and deeper insight grows thin. What modern medicine might label as early morning awakening insomnia, spiritual traditions have often honored as an opportune time for heightened awareness and connection. This doesn't mean you should simply accept disruptive sleep patterns that leave you exhausted or unable to function well during the day. There's a balance to strike between honoring natural changes and supporting your overall well-being. Small adjustments to your environment, timing of activities, light exposure, and expectations can make significant differences in how you experience these early wakings. Elizabeth, now 85, shares a perspective gained through decades of navigating changing sleep patterns. "I spent years fighting my 4 a.m. awakenings, trying every supplement and technique to force myself back to sleep. The real change came when I simply accepted these hours as part of my day and found ways to make them peaceful rather than frustrating. Some mornings I read by soft light, other days I simply listened to the world waking up. Now these early hours have become precious to me, a quiet gift before the busy world begins its demands." As you move forward from this video, I encourage you to approach your next early morning awakening with fresh eyes. Rather than immediately struggling to return to sleep, perhaps pause and listen to your body, your mind, the world around you. What might this moment be trying to tell you? What wisdom might be available in these quiet hours that isn't accessible during the busy day? Remember that throughout human history, older adults have been honored as those who hold the wisdom of experience, who see patterns others miss, who maintain connection to deeper rhythms of existence. Perhaps your changing sleep patterns are part of this evolution, inviting you into a different relationship with time, consciousness, and the natural world. Thank you for joining me in this exploration. If you found value in these perspectives, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences and wisdom might be exactly what another viewer needs to hear. Your voice matters. When you share, you're not just helping yourself, you're helping others feel seen and supported too. We read every comment, and your words keep us inspired. Thank you again for being here, and until next time, take care of yourself and those you love.